the information war that the United States was fighting against Russia was in evidence back then. It was full out. The condemnation of Russia on all fronts. I never saw a positive article about Putin. And although when I traveled in the world, and I traveled a lot doing documentaries, it was very clear in the Middle East, in Africa, in Asia, there was respect for him. That he was a man who was getting his job done in the interests of Russia. He was, as I said in the documentary, a son of Russia. Very much so, in the positive sense, a son of Russia. Not that he's out there trying to destroy the interests of other countries. No, that he was out there to promote the interests of Russia, but at the same time keep a balance, keep the world into a harmony. This has always been his picture. Peace was always his idea. In other words, he always referred to the United States in all these interviews as our partners. And I said, will you stop using that word? They're not. And that he's been, unlike most modern leaders, he's been in office off and on because Medvedev was president and he was not literally in charge. He took another appointment at that point but he was still very much involved. But for 20 years, more or less, he's been at the administrator of the state, the protector of the state. And he's apparently done a good enough job that the Russian people have kept him there. Because contrary to what many people think, I really believe that if the Russian people didn't want him, he would be out. I firmly believe that. I don't think you can go against the will of the people. The factions in Russia are very much there. So when people refer to Russia as Putin, they're mistaken. And they do this regularly in the New York papers and all this. They say, Putin did this, Putin did that, Putin's doing that. But it's Russia that's doing it. And that's what, there's a distinction there it's changed. In the old days, I would read about Khrushchev, but it was never Khrushchev personally. It was about the Soviet Union. There was respect for a country. And now, when it started to get personal with Putin, it changed, and our thinking changed in a negative way. We no longer respected it as a country. We were seeing it as a man, and the man we had trashed repeatedly as a poisoner, as a murderer, and none of which has ever been proven, but which has always been repeated and repeated to the point at which it becomes like an Orwell mantra. It becomes like, he is, of course, the bad guy. I'm not naive. I've talked to a lot of powerful people. In the movie business, there are powerful people, yes, and many of them are corrupted. I've talked to many people in my life. I've been in the military. I've had other jobs. I have to say, I found him to be a human being. I just found him to be reasonable, calm. I never saw him lose his temper. And I mean, you have to understand that most people in the Western way of doing business get emotional. I don't see that. I saw him as a balanced man, as a man who had studied this like you had. There's a calmness to you that it comes from studying the world and having a rational response to it. Family, with great respect, he's raised his daughters right. He served Yeltsin the way he looks at it. He served Yeltsin well, and he never trashed Yeltsin. Certainly, a lot of people did, but I asked him repeatedly, was he an alcoholic, this or that? But he wouldn't even go that far. He just respect. And this man, Yeltsin, was in many ways ridiculed, by the Russians, and he turned over the power because he felt like he was overwhelmed. He turned over the power to this man because why? How many people had he fired before him? Several prime ministers, this, that. Why did he turn power over to Mr. Putin? Because he respected him for his work ethic and his balance, his maturity. And that's what I can say is I saw in him. A poor person, from a poor family who worked his way up through the KGB. Americans keep saying he's a KGB agent, but it's like saying, George Bush was a CIA agent, but, he became you grow in your life. And he went from the KGB to this technocratic position. He dealt with many problems, including the Chechnyan War, which is a very difficult situation, as well as the Russian submarine problem. Several things happened early in that gave him a lot of experience, and he handled them all pretty well. I do. Now, of course, the question of money, the charges that he's the richest man in the world are ludicrous. He certainly doesn't live like it or act like it. If you're rich, I've been around a lot of rich people in my life. You'd probably have too. In America, you run into them. So many of them are arrogant.